folks, welcome back to the bench. What we're going to talk about today, this will be a little bit different video, but I don't know why I got this. I need another hole in my head. I already have two of those as it goes. Anyway, this is a BLI Stealth Series GP35. I saw it advertised, and there's a couple things they talk about that are not really there, but we'll talk about that coming up. I wanted to get it to try it. I know a lot of people have a love-hate, or probably more hate, relationship with BLI electronics and whatnot. Well, this one doesn't have a decoder. It does have a speaker and a blank spot. You can run a DC if you want to, right out of the box. This is what I got. So I said, you know what? I'm curious what this is. I want to get it open, get a look at it, see what it looks like, and go from there. Okay, so that's what I did. What I decided to do. Now for this video, let me go back a moment. What I'm probably going to do is put up a bunch of photographs that I have, because I can't stand here, talk about this, hold a camera with one hand, it'll be all wobbly, and it ain't gonna work, folks. So we'll put the pictures up, I'll talk over them and explain kind of what I did, which really isn't a whole lot, but this is the unit itself. Now this does have in it right now, I put in, this is where the 21 pin decoder sits, or it's got I'll call it a dummy plug. I think you can run it DC right out of the box. So you take that off. I pulled out a bunch of these wires just to make room. We'll see that in the photographs. And then I put in an ESU 58429 decoder. The speaker for the unit is right here. It sits in the back. It does come with a speaker. The only thing it doesn't have is a DCC decoder. Everything else is pretty much there. They have a lot of lights for it. This goes to rear lights. And then there's some other I think cab lights, front markers, and front headlight come in right here. They're out of the shell, which is up there. So I have them tucked in there while I was weathering it, and they go right there. So it's pretty much ready to go back together. Now I have teased JT Burke at Scale Sound Systems to get a replacement speaker for it. I don't know how this sounds. I haven't fired it up yet, which I probably should have done. But I just got done programming the decoder. And one thing I'm going to show you is how the decoders fit. Again, I don't know if I can show it here without getting too wonky, but you can see it sits up a little bit at this end. That's because the pins that BLI uses are lower pins. And a Soundtraxx decoder really sits high. A TCS WOW 121 sits really good because that's a low profile decoder. And this ESU is okay. I think it's fine. All the pins are in, so it should make good contact. We'll find out when we get it on the test track and fire it up. But I did have to get, and I'll put a list up of the BLI pinouts that say what all the. I was more curious about what are the lights on this thing. Sound should be obvious, etc., etc. So I programmed that decoder with my Loc programmer with a particular sound file for an EMD 567. I'll put it up, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later on. But that's been programmed. I did remap things to kind of match the lights that you get with this unit. I think it has, okay, the front and rear headlight. That's kind of obvious. I believe it also has cab lights. It has number board lights. Oh, don't mind this light blue you see here. That's my that's my liquid acrylic mask. That's on it when I was painting it. I did it over the little windows, number boards, headlights, etc. So that's why you see it looks kind of blue. All right, so it's got front rear headlights, a cab light, front marker lights, number board lights. I'm pretty sure that's it. So what I did was I programmed all that. I remapped.
All right, what I wanted to do, sorry for the little break here, but
This is the actual printout from the BLI site on the Stealth motherboards, all the lighting, because the biggest thing you need to know are what are the lights on this, and how does my decoder, whichever one you choose, react to those lights, to turn on those lights. I mean, slapping the decoder on is easy, and you'll probably get, F0, forward and rear, no problem. But when you get into all the other lights, you got to make sure that the decoder is turning on those lights as you wish. And you may want to remap them, which I did. I'll show you in a moment how I decided to remap these because of the throttle that I'm using with the Easy DCC system. All right, you may not have that issue, but I did. Now, up here in the upper left, it's got the pinouts for an MTC 21 pin decoder. And these are really per the NMRA standard. So it is standard. And I believe, I know the ESU decoder matches. I'm going to say that the TCS and Soundtraxx also do, but I didn't look in particular because I'm not using those. But for the ESU, I did verify it. So what you really need to know, I mean, it's nice that it shows you where stuff is. And again, there's the keep alive, there's the 21 pins, here are the track inputs, here's the, this is probably light blue J3, they have a call. Oh yeah, motor plus minus come in over here. So this shows you, it's kind of, you got to kind of look at the colors and then find the chart what it does. But what you really need to know, I believe, is on this. This is what I did. All right, so what you really, really, really need to know is what the auxes do. And this is what I did for my ESU 58429 decoder to make it work the way I wanted to. FO and FO, there's the FO is the headlight. You hit FO, the headlight goes on. You go in reverse, the rear light comes on. You go forward, the forward light goes on. The other auxes that are here, so aux 1 controls light 1, which in this case is the front Mars / ditch. Aux 2, and I put a 1 because the ESU aux 2, I think, has a 1 and a 2. So anyway, I'm using aux 2 1. That's why I put that there. That controls the cab light. And I remap that to the F4 button. Then there's an aux 3, aux 4. You have a rear Mars ditch. You have an L3. I'm not sure what that is, to be honest. You have an aux 5, which is the front markers. You have an aux 6, which are the number boards. So what I did, I made F3, the number boards, F5, the front markers. I'm not worried. I probably could look through here and try different numbers, different auxes to see what the rear markers are. But most of these units, especially on the diesels, they didn't really use markers, the marker lights a lot. And this GP35 is set up to run short hood forward. So it'll be pretty rare, I would think, that the high hood or the rear end of this Jeep 35 is actually leading a train that would have a marker light on. So I'm not too worried about it. So I have FO is the headlights, F1 does the bell, normal, F2 does the horn, normal, and you can select those, of course. And then I have F3 turns on the number boards, F4 turns on and off the cab light, and F5 does the front markers. And I did test those. They do work. That's what they do. So you need to know for your particular decoder you're going to put in what the aux numbers relate to on your decoder. So for me, I determined this is actually off of the ESU decoder, which is the same as to be honest, the NMRA. So it kind of works out. But you need to know, what does aux 6 turn on? Well, aux 6 in this case, and I set it up that way. I remapped it in the Loc programmer so that aux 6 is F3,
which turns on the number boards, if that makes any sense at all to anybody out there. If you get into the low programmer, you'll know exactly what I mean. This is the function mapping page where you can select whatever thing you got. Like a physical output, a logical output, and a sound output. Again, I'm not here to go through programming on a low programmer. It's really not my expertise. I muddled through this. I got it to work. But for the TCS WOW 121, you would need to know, they might go by colors of wires or something like that. I'm not sure, but you can figure it out. Okay, what is the aux1 on a TCS decoder? Because that's going to turn on your front mark. Well, you don't really, this unit doesn't have it, but you're probably going to have number boards, the cab light, probably like I did, most likely. I don't know, it doesn't have ditch lights on it, but your unit may. And I don't know what L3 does. I didn't program that to figure out what it does. That would be aux4. If I said aux4 is assigned to say F9 or something like that, I could see what it does. It'd be easy enough to do, but I didn't do it. So, moral of the story is this is what I did for my ESU decoder. And what you will need to do, because I don't know what happens if I know the ESU one wouldn't work. Well, it would work, but it's not mapped correctly the way I wanted it mapped. And I don't know what functions would do what auxes, and then, what lights it would tick on and off when you're playing with it. I'm just not sure, because I reprogrammed it and I remapped it to this right here that you're looking at. That's exactly what I did. Again, I'm not sure what it would take to do the TCS WOW or the Soundtraxx, but I'm sure you can do it. And then the other thing to look at, oops, let me just go back to here. Okay. Again, this is on the BLI website. You can download this. That's what I did. And it's good to have, because it does tell you up here, the pins are the pins off of the 21. Okay, that's fine. And I did check it. Okay, does NMRA pin 3 meet aux6? And it does. So these all line up. So that's cool. But what you really, really want to know is, what do these aux numbers do? Aux2 is the cab light. You know what I mean? Aux5 is the front marker. Aux6 is the number. That's what I use. So that's what you really need to know for your particular decoder. So, all right, with that, I'll shut up and we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
In LokProgrammer, where am I? Down here. On the decoder. So it's got F1 FO is obviously the front rear headlight. F1's the bell, F2's the horn, and then F3, 4, 5, I think, I reprogrammed, and I'll show you what I did later on to bring it to the lights, because I want to be able to press lower function keys, and that's really because of the DCC system I have. The Easy DCC that I'm using, the throttles only go up. They're F0, I think, to F9. So I try to keep things, below F9 if I can. It's just an older system, and that's just one of the quirks of it. You can't go above that at all. So I changed that. I remapped it. Now, some of the issues that I did see with this unit, and BLI claims it's got railroad specific details and it's got correct truck side frames and everything. And if they do, they really kind of goofed up. But what it does not have, and what I did add on the front truck, typical New York Central, it has the ATS inductive pickup shoe. So I added that from custom finishing. It's not on there, and I didn't see it anywhere else. So that's not I don't know what they mean by truck side frames that are detailed for the locomotive. Well, you missed that for a New York Central unit. And then on the cab itself, everything else looks fairly good. But on the front, again, if you look at photographs, you're going to see that right there. That is an motor generator for the ATS system. I think the EMD locomotives had a 72 volt system or 74 volt system, and it needed to be 32 for the ATS. So that's an MG set. That particular MG set, right now, is again another custom finishing part, not on the BLI model. So I don't know what else you have for railroad specific details, but that's pretty railroad specific if you ask me. That should be on there. Anyway, another custom finishing item that I had, I added it, painted it up a little bit, so I think it looks okay. I did have to move that grab iron forward. That is, I think it's a cow scale 17-inch drop grab iron that I had to, re-drill and put in there. It looks okay. It's not. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it looks all right. So that's what I found. You need to do. Well, you don't need to do anything to these units, but that's what I did. The unit itself has been weathered. Other than that, again, most of the details do look pretty good. It's got the bell on the hood. It's got I think what looks to be the correct, I'm assuming it's a 3-chime horn. 2 bells forward, 1 bell back. It has is that a Sinclair antenna there on the roof? Which I think it's on there. Again, a lot of the pictures I have are from the ground level. Again, other than that, the paint scheme looks okay. Things look pretty nice on the body itself. Has separate lift rings on it, separately applied wire grab irons and whatnot. So that, all looks fairly good. And again, there's the blue for the on the number boards. So overall, I think the unit itself, outside of those, which to me are 2 major details for a New York Central unit that are missing, everything else I think is there. The right MU is on it. Looks like it's got the correct MU on the front of it and on the back of it as well. So again, that's been weathered up slightly. Pretty much ready to go right now. So let me talk about some other items. This is gonna be long-winded. I'm already at 10 minutes, but I'll put up some photographs again, so you're not putting up with the shaky camera, trying to hold it and everything, and going dark like this. But let me do that and talk about what was done. It really is pretty simple. You take it out of the box. You get the hood off carefully. There are 4. And I'll be able to try to lay this down here. There's 4. There's 2 there, and then there's 2 there. Those are, latches that go through, and of course they're right. I think the front ones you can get from the bottom because they're right here by the fuel tank. The other ones are back here, kind of underneath the truck. So it takes a little bit of finagling to get the hood off, but you can just take your time and be careful. Again, I think this is the next I think the first Stealth was the SD40-2, if I remember. And I don't know exactly. I don't have one of those, so this is the very first Stealth locomotive I got. So let's pop up the pictures. Let's take a gander. Let's see what we got. And again, outside of those 2 New York Central details that are lacking on this unit, it doesn't seem too bad. Now, how it's going to run, once I get it on the layout, get the shell back on, get the body back on, hook everything up, and then run it with that decoder, we'll find out. The one thing I wanted to talk about, here I am getting long-winded again. I looked and looked and looked. I don't see a way to include a keep alive on this. There's just no room. It's just too tight inside the hood. One thing I think you could do, which I'm not going to do, I mean, obviously, there's no keep alive on this. And you can't go up here because that's where the low hood is. And you can't fit in here because it'll hit the top of the long hood. This part let me see if I can get to this. Right here. That's a weight, I believe. Hold on a second while I twine this around and get the wire out of the way. See, see that weight right there? I believe if you really, really wanted to, and if you're so inclined, you could take all this apart, take off the main weight, machine this away, and then put a keep alive basically right there where it's sitting. I believe a TCS KA4 would fit there. A KA2 I think would definitely fit there. I don't think at all you're going to get a BLI, one of their Go Packs on here. And the 2 Soundtraxx decoders, the 2 Soundtraxx current keepers aren't going to fit as well. Are there others? Yeah, there may be, but that's what I'm used to. So I don't believe the way this is sitting, unless you machine that away, you're going to get a keep alive in it. Now, why BLI did that and has that there, I'm pretty sure it's part of this, part of the weight. Why it's there, I don't know. I didn't have to ask BLI, but that's one thing I noticed because I always try to look and see, can I add a keep alive to this? Yeah, I know you don't need to keep alive if your track's clean. And I think the ESU decoders are a little bit better dealing with that kind of stuff without a keep alive. But it's easy enough to add them. You just got to solder to the end of the board. Now, one thing: when you put the boards in here, and we'll look at photographs, they are pretty close to these connector receptacles up here. So just be careful about that. Some of them really you got to move them out of the way a little bit to get the decoder in. So it would be really nice if, no, what they did do, I'm sorry, let me, babbling. If you go back and look, I don't know if I can show this or not, but this connector, that 3-pin connector in there, that is for their Go Pack. So there is something on the board, of course it's a 3-pin connector, for a keep alive. It'd be nice if they had, just solder pads somewhere on the board where you could solder in a keep alive. Of course, it'd be even nicer if there was a place where you could actually physically fit it without having to machine the darn thing. Oh well, anyway, okay, so let's go to the photographs. Let's take a look, see what we got, and I'll try to explain a little bit more what we got here with this BLI Stealth GP35.
All right. So like I said, this is the still photo area where I over talk or talk over this area. So hopefully this comes through okay. It should be a lot more stable than my shaky hands with the camera at that bench. So this is the internal of the BLI GP35, the stealth version. This is taken right with the shell popped off. And you can see up here, hopefully you see my mouse. I try to make the mouse bigger, but the screen recorder doesn't want to make it bigger. Anyway, there's 1, 2, and then opposite a 3 and a 4. And they go here and then back here, which this one's hard, this is under the truck. But if you're careful, you will be able to turn the unit over, carefully come in here and get these loose. I think I got the front ones loose first, brought the shell up a wee little bit, then the back ones, and popped it off. And then this is it laid right over on the bench. So you can see how it's taped with the typical BLI black tape. These are all JST connectors. These are for the front lights. There's a one you can barely see it. It runs here to the rear. I think the rear marker boards and the rear headlights, probably the rear class lights as well. The speaker is right here. This kind of odd shaped thing, rectangular with a little jut. These red and black wires are the speaker wires. They come over and they plug in right here. So that's the internals once you very carefully get the shell off. Here's a different view. Again, this shows the JST connectors here for the front headlight, number boards, class lights, cab light, all that good shenanigans. Here's the one JST. It is a JST connector, so it's pretty nice. That plugs into the back, and again, this I believe has the rear headlight, the rear number boards, and the rear class lights. This shows the speaker sitting right here, and the 2 wires from the speaker that run over here under the tape. This is exactly as it comes uncorked on the bench, just to show you what it looks like. Then what I did was I took the tape off and I removed several connectors to open up the area where the decoder is going to go. You can see the shell is now sitting back here. It still has this lovely foam inserts in it. Just popped everything out. You can pop these out. I did pop out, this is the front track connector left and right that goes over here. And this is the rear, which is still in. The speaker is sticking way up in the air, but it goes over here. this connector, which is kind of in the front, is, I believe it's got a yellow and a blue. It went right in here, and that is I think the motor plus minus that goes in there. So I took all those off, and what you have, this is I'll call it a dummy board for lack of a better term, that gives you DC. So right out of the box, you can pop this on the layout and it runs under DC. And that's what that is. That's the 21 pin connector. Obviously that pops off, and then the decoder sits right in that space where that sits. So here's a view from the side with everything removed. I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully you see that. This is the 21 pin connector, and this is the space. Now, two things to kind of note. A, this 21 pin connector is a little bit low. It's typical. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just it's low to the board. So in a moment, you're going to see a couple issues that you have when they are this low. And then these JST receptacles here make fitting in the decoder not super tight, but you got to be careful. I had to move these back a wee little bit to get the decoder in. Of course, it has this screw on it, which, depending what's underneath the decoder, may or may not be an issue. On this side, it's just a mount where it fits. So that's the internals from the side showing the open area. These are the possible decoders, and there might be others, I don't know, but these are the ones that I had. You have the ESU 58429. You probably could also use the ESU LokPilot, which I think comes in a 21 pin connector. That would be straight DCC, no sound, which you could do. I'm not sure why you would want to, but you certainly could. In the middle here is the Soundtraxx, the Tsunami 2 TSU 21P NEM8. That's their 21 pin connector. And of course, you have on the right, you have the TCS WOW 121 21 pin decoder. It's really up to you which one you want to use. They're all, have different pluses and minuses. I'm not going to get into the debate about which decoder is the best to use. Now, one thing I will tell you, this is the Soundtraxx. So look how that sits in there. I'm going to zoom in here. You can see it, again, because of the low 21 pin connector, it's soldered right to the board. You can see this device here keeps the Soundtraxx decoder up. Now, could you push that down so all the pins fit? Yeah, probably, but it's going to be angled up to the right at an angle. Just be aware of that fact. I'm not saying you can't use a TSU Tsunami 2 in this, but just be aware of the fact that because BLI used this lower 21 pin connector soldered right to the board, it's going to stick up. Now this shows the TCS WOW, which is a much lower profile board. You can see underneath there's really nothing there, and it snugs in there, and you can even see the pins sticking up top. So that'll fit right on that 21 pin connector straight across. So that looks pretty nice. What TCS does on their motherboards, and I'm not going to get into it in this case, but they raise this up so it's higher. So you can very easily fit a Soundtraxx, the ESU, etc. on a TCS motherboard. It works a lot nicer, I think, having it up a little bit higher. This shows the ESU 58429. Again, that's that device right there that's kind of sticking up. This is what I used. I actually went with this one. It's on the board. You can see I did push it down all the way. It is angled up, but not quite as bad as the Soundtraxx decoder. And you do have to wiggle this at a little bit of eking these out a wee little bit to get the boards to fit in. All right, so there's my unit, and that is it with the ESU 58429 installed. everything's reconnected. Again, it's got the cable that goes to the back lights going up here. It's got the motor lead JST plugged back in. The speaker wire is over there, and then the 2 track wires, the front and the rear, are back in over here. I didn't put the shell back on, so these other JSTs with the lights are not yet reinstalled. Now, one thing to talk about, let me go back to this real quick. If you look at this, I was looking and saying, can I put a keep alive in this? Because obviously you can put the decoder in it. It's easy. You just plop it right on. Well, you got to be careful with the pins and the deflection of the board. But can I get a keep alive in here? And the only place that I can see where you could do that is to take this bit right here, which I think is part of the weight, and machine it down. Now, this is the speaker. So unless you're going to yank that out and put a speaker that only goes straight across, which you could do, it gives you a bit more room. Now, you can't put it in the front because it's got the cab that sits in here and then the low hood, or the low front hood. You cannot put something on top because there's not much room inside the hood of this thing. You got to, really carefully measure from the bottom frame where the body sits up and see what you have. I did do that. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's a whole nother ball game. I measured about 33 millimeters. The height of this stuff comes out at about 30 millimeters. So that's giving you 3 millimeters, for wires and whatnot, which is okay. That's what it is. But there's no keep alive that's 3 millimeters high that I'm aware of. Now, just FYI, I did look at the BLI site. They have a way, I think a technical paper, where they installed their Go Pack inside a GP20. But to do that, they took it all apart. They took the motor out. They took the Go Pack apart. They put, I think, 3 capacitors down here in the area by the way, by the fuel tank. They then put one other of the capacitors here on. They taped it or glued it to the top of the truck, and then they brought wires back out, resoldered it to their board, put their board along the side of this, reinstalled the motor, put the board back in. I was like, oh geez, I am not doing that. Anyway, so you could look at that, read it if you want some entertainment. You'll see what they did. But again, I would not want to increase the width of this because there's not a lot of room inside this, to fit in the hood. Now for the keep alive itself, here's what I kind of measured. So again, this piece right here is 9 millimeters. I use millimeters. It's just easier for me to use. It's 9 millimeters wide, I'll call it. It's 15 millimeters long, and it's 11 millimeters high from right down. It's kind of hard to point, but from right down here, and there's a screw sitting there. So what I think you could do is you could, if you really, really wanted to, get in there, machine this away. Again, I'm not sure why it's not removable or why it's even there. I don't know. That's something for BLI to answer. But you may be able to get a keep alive right there. Right here, this J9, that's the 3. It's a JST connector. It's a 3-pin connector, and it's a different connector. I think the pitch is off, and it's a lot smaller than these other ones that they include. But a BLI Go Pack with the connector would clip right in there. Now you aren't going to fit this in the unit, but anyway, that's that's what that is for. And I'm trying to figure out what size that is so I can buy either a JST with wires, a 3-pin connector from say DigiKey or Mauser Electronics or someone like that. Or worst case, I may have to buy a Go Pack from BLI to get the connector to see what it is so I can order another one. Because I hate to order a bunch of stuff, make a mistake, order a bunch more until you finally get the right one. So anyway, so that's what I see, where a keep alive could go on this, if you're so inclined to do that. Here are the various keep alives that I'm aware. I know ESU makes one, but I don't know. I just don't like the ESU one. For whatever reason, personal preference, you could certainly look at it. These are the two TCS ones. There's a KA4, that's 14 by 14 by 12. I did round these numbers mostly up a little bit because you want to have, at least in my opinion, you want to have some more room inside there. So I think this is actually like a 13.7 or something like that. So that's 14. So it's 14, 14 by 12 high. There's a length with height. The KA2 is 9 by 9 by 16. So that these two may just fit. The Go Pack from BLI, again, they have their 3-pin connector, which will plug right in, but there's no way you're going to get a 30 long by 13 by 9. Now, the height would probably fit, and the width might be okay, but not 30 long. That's not going to fit in there. The Soundtraxx ones, I don't think would fit either. Obviously, the Soundtraxx, I think this is the Current Keeper, the original Current Keeper. That's 40 long. It's only 6 wide by 11 high, so that's okay, but the length is going to kill you. And on the Current Keeper 2, I think they took this one and made it kind of a rectangular version. That's 21 by 14 by 11. So I think one of these two, that's a little bit long, but the 14, 14, 12, if we go back, okay, it's 9, but you probably could come over this a little bit. So you probably could get a 14 by 14 length and width, and the height being 14. I'm sorry, what's the height of this puppy? 12. It's 12 high. You're at 11. So I think if you go up by 1 millimeter, you still would have the clearance. Now you still need to connect it. Either you connect these leads that come off of it. They make them with or without a plug, by the way. I'm sure you guys know that. But you could tin these, solder, tin them with a little bit of solder, and you could solder these directly to like an ESU board. There's a place to do that, which I've done it 4 or 5 times. Or if I figure out what connector goes there, you put a connector on the end of it. That 2 connector won't work. And then you plug it in to right here. I think this is, pin 1 is, let's say, your power voltage. Pin 2 is the control. Pin 3 is the ground. So it's just power and ground is all you need. And you could certainly do it. But I don't know. I did not do it in this case. And yes, I do know ESU does make a power capacitor as well. And there may be others. These are just the ones that I saw that I have. Again, I don't have a power pack or a Go Pack from BLI, but these are the ones that I'm familiar with. Again, so back here it is again, reinstalled speaker, possible keep alive area, my ESU decoder is sitting there, and everything set and ready to be ready for the hood to go back on. So here's the unit itself, and just a real quick comparison of the two. Don't mind this. This has been renumbered. I think this was renumbered, I don't know, mid-60s for the Penn Central merger. But here you can see, if I can zoom a wee bit, what I added. I did add what I had as the ATS shoe, which is not quite right, but that's what I had. Excuse me. I did add the ATS MG set up here. It's right there. It's a little bit different. I've seen different types on different units. I've seen these mostly on EMD units, even back to some of the EMD GP7s, GP9s. I think I saw it on a Alco RS3, I believe. So anyway, so definitely the EMDs have it. I've seen it on the Jeep 20s, the Jeep 35s, which this is, the Jeep 30s, the Jeep 35s. Again, that's this, the GP40s. I didn't see it on the U-boats. The New York Central had the U25Bs, the U28Bs, the U30Bs. I didn't see it on there, but this is what this unit looks like. I really do think it's a fairly nice looking unit. I think right there is the antenna that it does have on it. Everything else seems to be okay. I didn't sit here and pick at it. You got 3 louvers there. You got 3 louvers there. You got 3 latches on this battery box. You got 3 latches there. So, I mean, that if you really, really want to get anal about it, you can. But from what I looked at it, it looks fine. I did replace the front and rear coupler with a regular Katie number 5. It had really, really long length couplers on it, which may be for the radius it's supposed to run on. I'm not sure, but I did replace them when I put the shell back together. They fit right in the box, right in the coupler box that comes with it, so it's not bad. I just painted them up and put in Katie number 5s. Everything else, again, looks, as I look down the side, this maybe a little bit different than that. Hard to tell, but there may be some differences. There's a door open on that, but now the one thing that does jump out at me that I just kind of noticed, it's very, very glaring. You probably can see it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The handrail should be painted yellow. I mean, the ends are painted yellow on the BLI model, but it looks like this whole thing is painted yellow. So I may go back in and just kind of hit this with a little bit of yellow in between the stanchions, as it should be on the prototype. But other than that, I think it looks, fairly darn good. Um, I'm not sure that the BLI Blomberg trucks are perfect. And again, it kind of bothers me. BLI did indicate in their literature that this unit has got road-specific details. Well, I don't know what's more specific than an ATSU and this MG for a New York Central unit. Other units may be spot on. I don't know. Those are two, to me, you can't excuse that. Those are glaring omissions. You don't tell me you've got road-specific details if you leave off this, which is freaking obvious, and the ATSU, which a lot of the New York Central people know that these units had it. Not all of them, but a lot of them did have it. So anyway, so that's the model. That's the comparison. This is it back together over on the layout. It does run. So let's pop up some videos of the thing running just by itself, because the one thing I don't have, like I said, I need this unit like I need another hole in my head. It's mid 60s ish, early 60s, mid 60s. It's one of the earlier second generation units, but I don't really have any second generation rolling stock. So it's going to be pulling, normal freight cars, at least for me. But anyway, that's that's just the way it is. All right, so let's go ahead and what's next? Oh, that's it. So that's it. We're done. Let's go look at some videos of the thing moving.